This is the One Step Better podcast. Helping small businesses make wins each and every week. Hey everybody, welcome back to the One Step Better podcast. I am Mike. This is Matt.
What's up, man? How you doing today?
Doing well. All right, here's where we're gonna go. We're gonna start with, and you have to, if you're watching this on video, you can check this out. We're gonna start with a quick game of rock paper scissors. Winner takes all, one round. There's no no best of seven.
All right.
So the question I'm gonna ask before we start is, do you always start with the same rock paper scissors every time you play this game?
No, absolutely not. I'm always thinking, he may do this, so if he does this, I gotta do this. So I basically have to do the whole cycle every time. I just can't start at a constant.
Yeah.
So also one is not how you gotta do 2 out of 3. I mean, that's how the game works.
Not today, not on this podcast.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna throw paper. Let's see what you do. All right, here we go. Rock, paper, scissors, smash.
Oh wait, on.
Rock, paper, scissors, smash. I'm gonna throw paper. Here we go. Rock, paper, scissors, smash. That's not paper. That's paper. That's a tie. All right. In my head, I was thinking I'm actually going to throw paper after I said that,
and then I was going to use rock.
I was thinking too much.
I think he thinks that I'm going to.
Yeah.
It's very much like the Princess Bride.
I think that you think. In my house, we play rock paper scissors pretty often. It's like the go-to game anytime there is going out to eat and just need something to do.
Oh no, we
pretty often.
We get the little piece of paper and put them in a hat.
Yeah.
That's our, when we have to decide something. All right, put it in a piece of paper and put it in the hat. What are our numbers for the rotation in the game? Put the numbers in the hat like we're going to draw.
Do you often have just hats and paper laying around?
Yeah, of course. We got have something you got to grab a piece of paper, use somebody's hand to draw it out of. We're scientific method, man. We're not just rock, paper, scissors. That's scientific.
Oftentimes when you play rock, paper, scissors, you only got 3 options. It's going to be rock, paper, or scissors. And I find a lot of times as we start to troubleshoot and dig into issues around here, it really comes down to one of 3 things. It's a people problem, a process problem, or sometimes in our world, a technology problem. And so we're going to go through the lens of that today. We're going to look at, we wrapped up our people series. We're moving into talking about some technology stuff over the next few weeks. And this is kind of the bridge episode, if you will, where we're going to talk a little bit about people, talk a little bit about technology, undergird all of that with process. But Matt, really in our world, people really change a whole lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we have a lot of tools, a lot of technology that we use. And we're very, very clear, or we try to be very, very clear on process and how we're going to do our work. All those things really matter in our world. And so whenever you look at an opportunity in the future, maybe it's not something that we're currently doing, but it's an opportunity in the future, and you go through that lens of, do we have the right people? Do we have the right tools? Do we need to develop process? All that. How do those 3 things, people, process, and tools, come together and shape your thinking about what future looks like?
So our 3 uniques as we go through EOS is right tools, right process, or the right way, and the right people. I always think that people is a trump card. People will fix a process problem, but not all people can fix a process problem. So we have done a lot of focus on first defining the ideal process, then plugging in the ideal people, and then the ideal tech. So the process can be done manually, digitally, with tools, without tools. The same process or the end game in mind is where we start and the way to get there. People have to execute that. They can challenge that process, improve that process, whatever. And then also part of that improvement is to say, well, is there tech that would make this even better? So I think of it as the toolbox, right? The process is the toolbox. The people and the tech are the tools to make that process work. It is easy to let people drive the process, but having a starting point or a foundation of a process is the key. Now, some of that is out of necessity, some of that is urgency, some of that is the people you have to execute. Like I said in the very first, people will fix bad processes, but having a process is still kind of the foundation.
I like the people are the ultimate trump card. I agree fully with that. I also think, if you have the right people in place, they're going to help you define that process, what it needs to look like, how we should go about, reaching the outcome that we're trying to reach. And they're also going to help you understand these are the different tools that we need to do that well. In our world, if we're going to deliver a set of financials, in our accounting firm, the way that we get to that deliverable matters. It's not just the outcome that we're looking for, and that's how we define what that process looks like. This is the process we're going to go through to make sure that the end result is accurate, that it's timely, that it is consistent, and so that's the process. But the tools can change pretty often, and so as you start to look at your different processes, if maybe you're going through an exercise where, hey, what are some ways that we can find some efficiencies in this process? The tools are really some of those pieces that you could plug in or take out or switch up to maybe drive efficiencies within your process, but it's ultimately all going to be managed by a person.
1,000% agree. I use your example of delivering a financial statement. I may have a bad process, but I still have an end result in mind. Wrong person executing a inefficient process may still be able to execute. A great person implementing a bad process will improve that process or execute on it perfectly, even if it's a bad process, and get to the result you want. They also will challenge when should I be looking at an improvement of the process that requires a new tool or tech, or an improvement of the tech, or using the tools you actually have in front of you to the best of their abilities. Like when I think through anything that we're delivering, there has a built-in process. We know what the deliverable has to be. We know what the result we're trying to get to. My steps in my mind to get to that game versus your steps may be different, but the result has to be the same. And so,
yeah, I would say the hard part of that in our world. So we live in a professional services environment. The hard part is we have a lot of competent people that may have a little bit of leeway to do something their own little way. And it's not necessarily good or bad. It's just maybe that works better for them. We were talking about this in a different context yesterday that popped in my mind. You and I manage our inboxes differently.
Yep.
Now, we don't have necessarily...
I do it right and you do it wrong.
Right.
I understand.
Yeah. We don't necessarily have the way to manage your inbox. But in my world, that looks different than your world. Neither are right or wrong, other than mine is right and yours is wrong. But it's a different approach to the same result. Now, how do you balance that? Like, there's a little bit of leeway, a little bit of freedom to, very simple example. How do you balance that with the widget factory making mindset of I need everything to be stamped exactly the same for a consistent, perfect outcome every single time? Because that's a little bit of a dichotomy in some ways. It's McDonald's, right? People at McDonald's can easily be trained to put ice in a cup, put Diet Cup in that cup, put a lid on that cup, give it to the customer. But they have robots doing it now because of the consistency, accuracy, efficiency.
Absolutely.
Like, how do you balance those two things?
We have people that have some freedom to choose how they do things, because there may be alternative methods that get to the same result in the same efficient way. We could absolutely dictate, this is how you're going to manage your inbox. This is how you're going to manage your time. In our culture, our environment, the ability to think and the ability to determine what's the best course for them as a goal, as long as we know what the result is, I think that freedom's okay. If we were a assembly line, that's not just dependent on me. It's dependent on multiple people and somebody knowing when you're going to pass the baton.
Yeah, context is different.
Yeah, and I think about like the person at the restaurant who is working at McDonald's who has a very fixed, like, I'm going to scoop this much, I'm going to put ice in this little spot, it's going to always be efficient. That was done with the assembly line mentality of delivering hamburgers as efficiently as possible to somebody. When I worked at Anderson, it was very much that way. Yeah. I mean, we had a lot of things that were very standardized. When you took review notes, you used a red pencil. You had certain ruler you had to use under certain lines, and you had to use like certain standardization of how documentation worked. And it was global. This was not just one office, not just one partner. This was all a couple 100,000 employees they had. There's a lot to be said for a really clean process that's documented, consistently followed. We allow some interpretation of that. There's some variety. Not every client fits into the exact same box, but we have 2 or 3 methods that we consistently teach and preach on. to have consistency amongst teammates. There's probably a case to be said about making it more consistent. Like, this is how we're going to do it. Probably leadership, and that mainly being me, when it comes to the historical part of the firm, was I'm okay with some leniency. If I were to give the reins totally to Kim, we would not have any leniency. This would be how we do it. And that's just, I think, some of our personal bend. I know that, like, for the other firms that we've kind of emulated off of that came from a comprehensive accounting solution, which was a franchise for accounting, there was a lot of standardization of how we're going to do things, the forms that we're going to use, the process we're going to follow. And I still think process is super important in creating efficiencies and knowing how to scale a business. There are some things that aren't in standardized processes that maybe should be. I don't know. Maybe we should have a way to do a box. I don't know.
I think about it from the standpoint of there should be at least a default standard. If I don't know why or what I should do differently, I need to know that this is, with the lack of additional information, this is the way I need to do something. And to the extent that we have people that understand that, hey, you know what, this sounds like this may be a bit of an exception or something a little bit unique, those people, which again, ultimate trump card, should have the ability to kind of think through the bigger picture, right? And context is greatly, greatly important here. If I am a Ford Motor Company, if I'm stamping the right fender of a vehicle, I can't decide, well, I'm going to put that rivet a little bit to the left because there's 8,000 other people that are, processes that's going to impact. And I don't have the, you don't have the context, the freedom, the ability to figure out all that stuff on the fly on a one-off scenario. That's not the world we live in. But if I am trying to develop a company, whether it's a burger chain or a law firm or whatever it may be, that's trying to stamp out consistent work that is, to a specific quality standard that's repeatable over and over and over again, I'm going to care a lot about every little thing that goes into that. Most businesses are probably somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, and I think I start thinking through, like, your inbox is actually a very good example to talk about this. Like, do we have a result of management of our inbox that we expect? Yes. We were going to return phone calls and emails within 24 hours. Hopefully, doing our best to do it same day if at all possible, making sure anybody who needs to have communication is part of it. We do not email internally. We send stuff to Slack only. We want to communicate effectively. We want to manage our calendars through there, everything. So managing in my inbox using the tools that we have gets the result we want. Have we standardized and said, you're going to work off of an empty inbox. You're not going to save everything. You're not going to use archive. You're going to use delete or whatever it may be. We probably haven't standardized that enough, but we have a set of expectations of management.
The outcome is what matters ultimately there. And if you want to block off an hour every morning to respond to every single email and make it down to 0 or every day, whatever, that may be one way to do it, but there's other ways to do it.
The result is still the goal, not the how.
Not the input.
Right.
Yeah. And we have that freedom because we do work in an environment that is a little bit more open to interpretation for how do I get to that result. Now, the result's the same every single time. I expect that you are servicing our clients in a way that makes them super happy, like they're good with our communication.
I mean, we've let people go over, you're not responding to email in a timely manner, and we've talked about this, and you're still not doing it. You're not effectively communicating at the level we expect. Yeah. So how you manage your inbox is up to you. And it ended up being where somebody else was managing their inbox for them before they had to leave. And thank goodness that is not something I ever want to do. Like, that's annoyingly, hey man, return your damn email.
Yeah.
It's not hard to figure out.
Yeah. Call them back.
Right. And I think back to when we first started, how I did bookkeeping work or when I was servicing a client. And then as we added people, we found that, they have a better way of doing something which should have improved so is it the chicken or the egg, right? Is it the people who made a better process or the process identified better people to execute the process? I don't know the answer to that, but I do think that is something that it's a Venn diagram that when ideally suited, that middle of the Venn diagram is what you're looking for. The right tool, the right process, the right people. It's definitely all, it does not just one, it's definitely all three together.
Got questions about how to run your business better? Join Works and Patrick Accounting for office hours. Every month on Thursdays, several of our staff host open discussion Zoom meetings to share tips on business best practices, as well as answer any questions you have about their topic. We talk about QuickBooks tips and tricks, how to understand your insurance policies, employee onboarding, and the list goes on and on and on. Don't miss your opportunity to engage in the conversation and come away with some business tips. Register today at works.com/office hours. That's WHIRKS.com/office hours. Can't wait to see you there.
As we think through this, our processes constantly change, adding tools constantly changes people. Like, how do you identify when you think you have a process issue, a people issue, or a tech issue?
I think I always start with it's a people issue and then drill down from there. Mainly because to the extent I have a problem, somebody has to own that problem. Who's responsible for whatever it is that, let's go back to, I always, talk about baking cookies.
It's amazing how often you use that as a reference.
Yeah, I know. I love cookies. If I have a problem where my chocolate chip cookies are always burnt, I'm going to start with the people because, hey, let's say you're my manager. Hey, Matt, your cookies are always burnt. How is this always happening? What are you doing to fix it? You got to get this under control. Now, in my world, it's Matt's job then to go and look and see, all right, are we mixing everything correctly? Do we set the oven correctly? Does our timers working? The process by which we make cookies is then being managed. And then, all right, all that's working. So, all right, is maybe our oven broken? But it starts with who is owning the fact that our cookies need to be coming out perfect every single time. Because it may be, that may start there, and Matt may say, hey, you know what? I don't give a flip about these cookies. I don't even like chocolate chip cookies. I'm gluten-free, non-dairy, GMO eating, and this is dumb. And it's like, well, I have the wrong person. And the first thing, it doesn't matter if you feel that way about the cookie business, my oven being broken isn't going to fix my cookies not getting cooked correctly. So I start with people because I'm a big believer that ultimately everything rises and falls on leadership, and the people that are responsible for those processes and tools have to take responsibility for what's under their care, the stewardship. And so I start there, probably process next, and then tools are third in my.
Well, your example is that aren't. So hey, if it's a person, it's not a people problem. Now I'm looking, my oven says I'm setting it for 350, but it's really running at 375. I'm still using the same number of processes. I don't know why it's temperature. But I'm going to review the process. And then you went right to tools, which is, all right, process isn't broken. It's tools. Is my oven broken? Is the pan I'm using now different than I used to use? Right. So now it gets who knows? And so that is an interesting thing because I think it's very similar to how we think through our work. We have a client that comes on board that doesn't get trained well enough. We're not holding them accountable to process. They don't execute process. They get upset. They're not getting what they expect as far as delivery. And I go back to start with people.
What did you do to make it better?
Did you train them the way they should be trained? Yeah. Well, I didn't. Well, why didn't you? You didn't want to execute it? You didn't care? You were too busy? Then I went to, what was the process to train them? Why didn't they get the understanding of what we're supposed to do? Oh, wait, this person didn't know how to use QuickBooks at all, or they didn't know they're too busy to respond, or they didn't have the tech that we even told them to plug in. So process first, and then followed by, are they using the tools that we've told them to use as part of that process? And it's very similar to, you would think, I think it's that pattern is probably right most of the time. People, then process, then tool.
Yeah, and to be clear, I don't think that people never make mistakes, right? It's not.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm not saying that if the right person, in my cookie example, if you were the right person, that you would not have ever made a burnt cookie. I'm not saying that. I am saying that the right person would, a lot of times when they do realize that there's a mistake happening or a mistake has been pointed out to them that they didn't realize, they have the competence, the character, the ability to figure those things out without a lot of oversight, direction, details. People make mistakes, and we give grace where mistakes happen. But at the same time, in a culture of accountability, we want to be able to go to our teammates and say, hey, this didn't work out well. What do we need to do to make this better? And the right person is going to do that with a smaller nudge than maybe a wrong person would.
Yep. So this has happened to us a lot over the years, right? We change a lot of stuff. right? So we go through and we find new tools and we may tweak our process or we may add people to our team. How do you evaluate whether or not you have a person who is not executing the process, or they didn't implement the change of the technology, or technology has impacted their ability to execute on the process because they don't know the tool? Like, how do you identify where the problem area really lies?
That's a lot easier to do whenever I know what is supposed to be done. Like if it's a job that maybe I've done in the past, it's a lot easier to jump into that to find where those gaps are. If it's a job that I don't know anything about or I've never done, like for example,
Making cookies.
Yeah, making cookies. No, I'm good at eating cookies. But if you said, "Hey, Mike, I need you to jump into Anna's job, who's our producer here," I don't know. I would be like, "All right, hey Anna, help me figure out what you do," and it would be very high level, like, "Well, what do you think about that? What do you think about that?" But on the technical side, I don't know the buttons that she's pushing, the knobs that she's turning, or I don't know what that process looks like. So it's a lot harder to do there. And you may need to be able to bring in some outside help if it's a function that you're not familiar with. But if it's a job that I know what to do, I'm going to go back to the basics of, all right, Matt, sit down with me. Tell me, how did you go? Like, what did you do first and next? And I'm going to walk through the entire process that they went through to get to that ultimate outcome, because normally that's going to shine lights on, well, I thought we were supposed to do it like that, and you did it like this. Why was there a discrepancy there? Or what do we need to do to get it better? Or a lot of times we'll see, oh, well, that's pretty clear. The bottleneck there is on that tool that we're using. We're using a hammer instead of a drill, whatever, analogy you want to use there. And then that's simply, all right, we need to start to look at a different tool. Maybe there's a better tool out there. For me, a lot of that starts with, in today's world, in 2023, we shouldn't be doing something like that. And then that's going to lead down the path of, like, there's got to be a better way to do that. Because with the increase of technology in every arena in the world, moving at a rapid pace, anything that you are doing manually or having to touch, any data manipulation, we use a lot of spreadsheets and whatnot. Anytime you're doing that, my first thought is you shouldn't be. Like, there's got to be a better way to do that.
I find it so funny. So, like, this is the execution of our sales process, if you think about it. We review the process of our prospect from, walk me through how you're doing these things. Let's say it's handling your payroll, or if it's handling your HR systems, or if it's handling your bookkeeping. How do you pay your bills? How do you invoice? And so we're going through all those processes, trying to find areas of concern that don't allow them to get the results they want to have. They haven't evaluated their process. Now, we may find that it's a people problem. They just lost their bookkeeper. We may find it's a people problem, or that person was incompetent or don't have enough time to do it, execute it well. We may find that it's you're not using all the tools in front of you to do this, but we still start with the process. Mm-hmm. And we figure out if it's a people issue in the process, or it's a tech tool in the process, or if there's a process problem. It's pretty...
Yeah,
it's no different, but it's exactly the same thing that we're talking about here when we were evaluating our own processes. And I'm assuming if you're in the landscape business, and it's no different, right? It's, okay, we're supposed to have this schedule. You're supposed to be at this days. Here's the tools we're having. Why is it taking you so much long to do this? My legs don't work, or whatever it is, and I only can walk for a mile a day, and then I have to take a 30-minute break. Well, now I know I have a people problem. But then I have my lawnmower keeps breaking every 30 minutes. I have a tool problem. Or no, wait, you said it's only supposed to be 2 hours, but this lawn is going to take me 5 hours because of this, and this. So I have a process problem. And it's all we're really doing is determining the problem solving of let's go through your actual process and see what problems lie.
Realistically, every service-based business is exactly the same. It's let me get in, because I'm the expert. I know this stuff really well. This is what I do for a living. You probably don't. Let me, and not like in a
bad way,
badgering way, but like walk me through what you're doing. And because of my expertise or my knowledge or my experience, I can point out those things that, this could be improved, that could be improved, that could be improved. You need something different there, or all right, we need to have somebody else involved in that stuff. And it's just simply like, that's what every service-based business does.
Yep.
And so, like, how do you translate that same process, that same mindset over into a non-service-based business? Let's say that, I'm
making cookies.
Yeah, making cookies, or I'm a full-service restaurant that,
right.
They still have those same problems.
Yep.
Is it the same process? Do you think it's the same process to go through in an environment like that to say, all right, who do you have doing what? Show me how they're doing things. What are the,
Yeah, I think it is, right? In the area that you're talking to them about. So let's say it's accounting is one thing, but if it's operation in the restaurant, okay, how do you create your calendar for your schedule? How are you making sure they're trained and following the process that you guys are supposed to have to get food out the door? How do you make sure you have quality control? Like, we're going to go through the same thing. Like, walk me through how you get your line set up. How do you have your back of your house laid out so that the stuff gets delivered efficiently on plated? How does your expo process work? How does food delivery work? How does cash out work? What about the tech to get that? Are you getting good information in your tickets? Is it easy to be seen? Is it tracking your inventory? Whatever those things may be, but I'm still going through the same process to deliver that versus the cookies versus the thing. Now, for me, what I find interesting is that, like, in sales, I'll tie this back to sales for a second. The reason why we would sell a client on why they should choose us is because we've identified something that they have either known already and now it's gotten clear, or we've identified something that goes, this makes sense to pay you money to improve this process, to improve my business so that I can do X, Y, or Z later. I've got to connect the improvement of that, or the I don't have time to do it, so you shouldn't do it. It's the same logic, right? Internally, it's, hey, I want to deliver this much work in this amount of period of time. This is, like, I think back to my management classes in college and their throughputs of, like, okay, where's my bottlenecks? When I need to plug in people.
You got everything flow charted out?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that we win when we are able to have those kind of conversations and we can identify the pain or the issues that our clients have and have a solution for fixing it that makes their businesses better.
Yeah.
And then our systems and processes on our end allow them to get the result which they care about, which is the information or the assistance to make decisions and run their businesses better. That's the job that we're in. And I don't think that's much different than any other service-based business.
I would agree with that. I do think that, we're talking about this from a very logical lens. Logically based thinkers we are. Yep. And, the flow chart, we love a good flow chart and seeing how everything plays out. And you mentioned sales. It's, sales doesn't necessarily think of it the same. Well, a lot of times they won't present it the same way, which, where they are really great. A good salesperson is going to take that logical mindset and turn it into emotion.
Absolutely.
I see your pain now, man. How do you feel whenever your fryer goes down and you can't make any fries? And that's where that magic happens.
Mike, we have a cookie shop. Stop mixing metaphors.
So I do need to, but that's where that magic happens on the sales side. Is they're able to take that logical picture and paint it in a very emotional feeling kind of way to get I don't like that feeling. I do need help getting this figured out.
This is a problem. I do need to turn it from process to emotion in order to make it have a decision and make an impact. If it doesn't, and that doesn't make any sense, but I don't really care, that I'm not going to decide.
Yeah. I want to kind of wrap things up talking about this. I think it's important to understand that we're talking about people, process, and tools. If any one of those is changed, the other two are impacted.
Yep.
You can't ever just say, all right, I need to replace my manager in my cookie shop. I'm going to put Anna in that role instead of Matt because Matt didn't work out, and now everything is fixed. That never happens. If you replace the person, a good person is going to start to evaluate process and tools. If you replace the process, the people have to be trained. The tools have to align with the new process. And if you're replacing the tools, the people have to understand how to use that tool, and the process has to be adjusted for the new tool set that's going to probably do something maybe a little bit differently, or at least have some features and functionality.
Man, our segue question was good today. Rock, paper, scissors. Because that's what this is all about.
Yeah. They're all interdependent in the same way. People, tools, processes are way interdependent.
Yep.
That's the connection. That's the thread. Finally found it.
It only took us an hour and a half of rambling, so good luck. I hope you enjoyed the podcast today.
This is the edited version.
That means it's time to go.
Yeah, and now Matt's phone's ringing.
Hello, Matt.
Well, I appreciate you guys listening to us today. Make sure you subscribe so you don't ever miss another episode of the One Step Better podcast. And we will see you next week. Thanks for listening to the One Step Better podcast. I'd really appreciate it if you would take some time to rate us 5 stars on your podcast player of choice, and make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you never miss out on another episode. Thanks and have a great day.